taking time out of your morning to join us. I'm your host, Michael Patton. I am the Diversity Inclusion Officer for the City of South Bend. My co-host joining me today is Antonius Northern. He is the Inclusive Project Manager for the Office of Diversity and Inclusion. The Office of Diversity and Inclusion created these webinars as a vehicle to address the challenges of COVID-19 to assist small businesses and MWBEs amid the corona crisis. Today, we would like to discuss how do women-owned businesses keep calm and carry on in a crisis. Let me introduce you to our guest of the show. Bethany Hartley is the Director of D&I, Diversity and Inclusion for the South Bend/Elkhart Regional Partnership. Bethany, welcome.
Thank you so much.
All right. And our other guest is Willow Witherall, Director of Women's Entrepreneurship Initiative, St. Mary's College. Willow, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
We've been looking forward to the two of you joining us to talk about this important topic and to take a look and a dive into what it feels like, what it looks like for women who are in business and they are challenged by COVID-19. We understand that we have had crisis after crisis throughout the time frame of businesses being certainly created. However, we also understand that women, most especially women, are disproportionately affected by the crisis based upon the data that we've been able to research in many ways. And so today is an important topic for us to be able to discuss the challenges that women face when they're in crisis, but most particularly as we talk about COVID-19. Antonius?
Yes, it's going to be it's a great opportunity for us to connect with Bethany and as well as Willow and touch base with them about some of their initiatives that they're working on, both with the St. Mary's Spark program as well as with the South Bend Elkhart Regional Partnership. So I'm very excited to be having this conversation this morning.
Go ahead.
So one of the first questions that we had an opportunity to touch base on was how both of your companies are working through the COVID crisis. So could you share with us some of the ways that your companies have been able to adjust during COVID to be able to assist small business owners?
Antonius, can I kick that off?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay,
please.
okay, great.
We'll direct that to Willow.
Thanks. Bethany and I are both working on a lot of things. I know we just didn't want to talk over each other, so thanks for the
Not a problem. Go
opportunity.
right ahead.
Like everyone, the Women's Entrepreneurship Initiative made some rapid pivots, and our mission is to economically empower women through business ownership and career advancement. But that economic empowerment piece for women entrepreneurs, I think the programming and support was needed more than ever. So we looked to see how we can bring programming online, obviously, so that mentorship and resources didn't stop. We piloted our Spark Women's Business Accelerator this spring in an online format, and certainly experienced some tech challenges with it, but also a lot of success. And then we've offered a series of webinars and online mentoring sessions as well. I think one of the most important things that you can do in a crisis is connect with people you trust and be able to work through, a variety of concerns and issues that you're experiencing. And that can be on the financial side of things. It can be on a variety of holistic well-being issues. And so to really draw on our mentor network and do some matchmaking has been one of the largest focuses. And then also trying to communicate information about the CARES Act, the federal funding that's available, and help people navigate that and prepare to take advantage of those programs.
It's a great idea.
Bethany.
Thank you. Go ahead, Bethany. Would you like to share?
Thank you. Sure. At the South Bend Elkhart Regional Partnership, so our overarching goal for the partnership is to increase the per capita personal income for all of the citizens of the region, which includes St. Joe, Elkhart, Marshall counties in Indiana, and Berrien and Cass in Michigan. So we want to increase that to at least the national average by 2025. And so during this time, early on in this COVID situation, our organization took the lead on aggregating information to share with the governor's office. So we facilitated understanding how businesses were pivoting in the region, as well as then understanding how they're going to support their employees once we all possibly return back into the workforce. And so we see ourselves mainly as a convening and aggregating organization, and we shared that information with the governor, and that did impact his decision making as the state of Indiana is opening up. Specifically with the Diversity and Inclusion Initiative, we are focusing in on how we support our graduates of the Hustle SBE program. That is a cohort-based model for women and minority business owners. And so with the first round of graduates, we actually were able to unlock some access to capital to directly support their pivoting, whether it be to online, whether it be to closing out some projects that were delayed because of supply chain complications, whatever they needed. We really gave them some grace on determining where that capital should go in their business. And for the next round of Hustle, launching on June 16th, it has gone all virtual. So that will be facilitated through Zoom. And we're looking at how do we deliver the same quality content. And we've learned a lot from Willow's program going online. And so generally speaking, just serving as a SharePoint of sorts of information. We get a lot of resources and information sent to us. So we've been sharing a lot of that out on our social media. And doing some direct connections as needed.
I think those are some really smart solutions in this time. And I think utilizing the technology and kind of in light of what one of our other speakers shared, Rhonda Gibson Willis, just kind of dealing with some of those hurdles, are there also some additional insights for our women-owned businesses and other small businesses as it comes to dealing with technology? And you can start off with Willow, because I think that your program going online was probably was something that you just recently mentioned. So.
Yeah. So the biggest insight is really all businesses in some capacity need to be tech-enabled businesses. I mean, that's the key takeaway for me in the crisis. And businesses were at sort of different phases of embracing technology and figuring out how it can help them. But I think one of the things that was clear, and we knew going into the pilot process and working with women from the pilot project that we did was really specifically focused on African American women in West Side neighborhoods who are looking to establish
parent with both needing to work or both being business owners, which is most of us need to work. And so just dealing with the balance, and I use that term loosely because I believe balance is very subjective, and understanding how to get through the some of the feelings of guilt of having to put your child back into a child care facility, or possibly for the first time, because you may have older parents that were watching your children before this situation, and now that might not be an option. So there's not only financial burden that goes into placing your child back in, there's also the guilt of, if the children are, in this specific scenario, children were expected to wear masks at the child care center. So getting a level of understanding with the children and the necessity for that. And I think the Willow touched on this a little bit. If you're at home, how are you navigating working or running a business, having children doing e-learning, having possibly a partner in the house that's also trying to work from home? And many of us, our internet was not purchased with that understanding from the beginning. Yeah. And so accommodating and adjusting, and just having constant questions. And for some of us, it's asking a wall those questions and not really, maybe having a built out network to ask those. And so I think something that has come out of this has been new networks that are founded in virtual or digital. I can speak for myself in saying I've joined one. I probably wouldn't have joined it before this. And knowing that you can have sounding boards of trust that are going through similar experiences, and that camaraderie doesn't have to be lost because we're distanced, right? So,
yeah, I think there's a really strong therapeutic aspect that we need to, as business owners, need to tap into. But then I'm hoping that Willow will also tap into that dynamic of having a young child maybe there with you while you're doing your video chat, being able to deal with the needs of additional family members. Like, many of the business owners that I know are not just integral to the community, but they're also integral to their family group as well.
That's right.
And so, like, it's changing the dynamic of what folks expect to see on the other side of that viewing screen, right? You should anticipate that there will be families inside of homes if you're doing video chats with others.
Yeah. I think that's such a great point, Antonius, because I know, women entrepreneurs and everyone is under great stress because of COVID-19, and it's laid bare a lot of the parts of our society, like all of weaknesses and how we deliver healthcare and kind of some of the social safety nets. But it's also made really transparent, like all of the different ways, all of the different environments that people can work effectively. And the idea that you don't have to be a separate person at work or home, I think it's important, because I think women have long advocated for better support in terms of access to quality, affordable childcare, longer maternity and paternity leaves, all of the things that create healthy families. But when that life is invisible, it's easier not to have to pay attention to all of those extra responsibilities that often fall to women. And I think, going online and working in our homes with all of life behind us, just reveals the complexity of responsibilities. And so I think that has been a positive, is, we just really humanize people and, recognize the different family responsibilities don't go away when you're running your business or going to work. So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I want to pivot over to Mike, but I just also want to make sure that the folks know online that, like, the City of South Bend's Human Resource Department has made available opportunities for staff members who are dealing with these additional pressures of COVID-19, and found ways to even, if you need to take some time off in order to address the needs of your family, there's an opportunity to do that as well. So, there are small businesses that are employing a number of folks, and potentially this could be something that you could utilize. But yeah, Mike, if you want to go on with the next one.
Yeah, and so as we let's look at the really the nuts and bolts of the challenges that women are facing during COVID-19, and share with us how important it is to have a disaster recovery plan in order to maintain business continuity and to minimize the potential effects of COVID-19. Bethany, would you share with us?
So it's incredibly important. And I also think that ties as well to succession planning and really understanding at the beginning of your business, and you may already be well into your business development, but planning for the end. So what does that end look like? Is it,
Sure.
are you gearing up to exit the company, to sell it, to pass it on to a family member? But I think the challenge we have right now, from what I've observed, has been there are so many resources out there, and new resources, and frankly, scamming resources that are, while there is so much good rising up, there's also the other side of it. And so I think in this time, it can be really challenging to plan for a disaster when you're in the disaster. But that's where I would lean to your network that you already have, that you trust. So whether that's going to something like the Women's Entrepreneurship Initiative or SVDC or SCORE or the Chambers, if you already have a relationship there, or if you have a banking relationship, leveraging those. And if you see something that it's like, download your disaster relief recovery, template or whatever it may be, maybe check that with someone that you know first. Don't just do it. So, I mean, the importance is incredible. Yeah. I've done it. I learned.
I'm so glad you brought that out, Bethany, the other side of it. There's some good things happening out there, certainly good resources, but then on another note, there are those out there that are trying to get you. And there are people that take advantage of crisis situations because people, in a lot of senses, are vulnerable. And when we talk about business owners and the work that they do, and this crisis, in my opinion, being the worst crisis that we've experienced, most especially knowing that our economy has come to a halt. And so this has been difficult for small businesses, MWBEs, to navigate, and certainly they want and need to be mindful of what you've said, that other side, and those who want to take advantage of them. You don't want to just give someone your federal tax ID number and you've not vetted them. You don't want to give your social security number out, and probably other personal information that could be asked during this time without having a relationship or vetting that particular resource to know that they're legitimate. So you bring up a very good point, and I'm so glad that you brought that out. It's going to be helpful to our listeners. Willow, how about yourself?
Well, Michael, I wanted to piggyback on that to say, one of the red flags kind of around resources and support is the easier it seems that someone is making it for you to access money or funding, the bigger the red flag in my mind. And that's whether we're in a crisis or out of a crisis.
Sure.
So, and sort of an out of a crisis context, when I think about accessing financial resources, usually the easier and faster it is to get the money, the more you pay for it in the long run. So that's just kind of like a guideline to think about. And I just want to emphasize to folks listening that, especially in the South Bend community, I think there's been a real effort to link the different organizations that support entrepreneurs. So whether someone has a first point of contact with Bethany's organization or mine, or with Antonius, or with James Summers, or Alan Steele, or SCORE, I mean, all of those organizations easily communicate between one another and help do referrals. So I really encourage someone, if you've found a resource and you want some additional assistance vetting it, to definitely know that there are trusted advisors here in the local community. And if we can't answer your question, we're going to work really hard to make sure that someone else can, to make sure that you're making the most informed, best decisions that you can. And in terms of the strategies and tools for a disaster recovery plan, I can't say enough about the work that Alan Steele and our local Indiana Small Business Development Center is doing. So they're working overtime really to help our small businesses think through that. And I think it's also, this time is a great one. It's never too late to build out a circle of people as trusted advisors. So if entrepreneurs are listening and they're thinking, gosh, they're kind of kicking themselves like, well, I don't have a great relationship with my banker or an accountant. It's okay. Like now, it's not too late to start. And so if you've got, even a personal checking account and haven't taken all the steps that you need to do to set things up on the business end, we can, you can do it now. And I think the huge sort of rush for our financial institutions to work with people on the payroll protection program, some of that work has slowed down, and so they've got capacity now. Where a few weeks ago, a month ago, stretched thin, they're really open to working with folks, even if you don't have a relationship with that institution. There are several that have reached out to me to say, please send folks our way. We're happy to help them, even if they're not our client yet.
Yeah, there's a lot of support out there, and we hope that our participants certainly will take advantage of the suggestions that each of you have made as well. The negative impact of COVID will be both wide and deep. From a gender perspective, women entrepreneurs are disproportionately impacted by a crisis, as I made mention earlier. What kind of financial solutions are available to women-owned businesses that will help them to carry on? Now, we kind of, as I was thinking out this question, keep calm and carry on is a cliche in some senses as well. But it's certainly appropriate as we talk about the challenges of COVID and women-owned businesses and the stance and or the focus that they're going to have in order to come through this pandemic successfully. And so can you, Willow, or actually Bethany, kind of give us some tidbits around that?
Sure. So I think just echoing kind of what Willow shared about the quick money is not always typically the best money. So I do want to reiterate that. I would also say, I had a couple of you can bounce that off of. Or, I've been commenting a lot more on social media than I ever have before, but it's because I see questions that no one's answering, or I am concerned about some of the answers going down a path that wouldn't be sustainable after this. So I think I avoided parts of your question, but I answered it in a different way.
Yeah.
So
If I,
I hope
if I
that's
could
love
jump
it.
in there, Mike.
Both of you are saying the same thing, that be careful of the free 99 synopsis. And as well, just through my research, I've found many writers to talk about women in crisis do more of what you're talking about, Bethany, and that is reaching out to different entities or people to bounce information off of before they pull the trigger on a decision. And so that seems to be the mindset of women when they find themselves in a crisis, is that they are quick to reach out to someone like a Bethany Hartley or a Willow to garner some information or to bounce off some questions that they may have, so that they're making an informed decision. And so I think, as you make mention of that, that's important for them to know and to do as they talk about keeping calm, but as well forging forward.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Kind of,
if I could, oh, go ahead. No,
Go
sorry,
ahead.
Antonius.
Oh, yeah. So, thinking along of the business structure that you were talking about a little bit ago, Willow, and also kind of liking to pull Mike into this part of the conversation as well. There is the WBE certification that our women, small women-owned businesses can receive through the state of Indiana, also through the city of Indianapolis. But there is this bit of a cash crunch that is going on. Mike, could you talk a little bit about the benefits of having a WBE certification? And Willow, talk about kind of navigating this during the COVID-19 cash crunch, and how you can kind of continue to operate your business and then seek certification at the same time.
So I think it's important for Bethany to talk about that certification. And certainly she's got the background on it. Bethany, why don't you address that WEB certification?
Sure. So a few pieces of it, and we talked a little about this in our pre-meeting and kind of had a conversation around this. I think from a business continuity perspective, a lot of companies, especially smaller businesses, are working hard to stay cash positive and have as much liquid assets available as they can at this time, while still balancing being able to purchase and to generate business. So I think in looking at WBE certification, the one I'm more familiar with is through WBENC, the Women's Business Enterprise National Council, which it is a certification that is for corporate and government contracting, that is reciprocated by the city of South Bend, by the state of Indiana, and there is an option to add on a WOSB certification, which then gives you some access to federal contracts. I think important things to keep in mind, there is an application fee, and that varies based on the size of your business. And so what we typically see with women business enterprises is that perhaps a company that they're selling to requests that certification more so than getting it and then trying to find clients. Typically, there's this preconceived notion that once you're certified, the contracts just start rolling in, and that is not true. So please do not believe that. It is an access tool, right? So it will get you in front of networking opportunities. And I know with WeBank and with the city of South Bend doing these webinars and having an active plan rolling out around supplier diversity, you then are able to get connections to supplier diversity representatives, procurement individuals that would be advocating for you within companies, within government entities to purchase from. I think it's important to understand, say, for example, with the city of South Bend, if you are a company that makes pens, let's say. You want to know what is the forecast for the city of South Bend buying pens. And so being able to have that certification kind of gives you an in to find out that information. Also, there are a lot of networking and educational components that come alongside with not only the WBE certification, but there's also MBE certification, which is done through the National Minority Supplier Development Council. And there are regional representation for each of those entities that can kind of help you down that path of, here are the networking components. I know, for example, WeBank is doing a whole series on women of color entrepreneurs and bringing in nationally recognized speakers on this. So it's incredible, the network, and then the ability to do business with one another, with other WBEs and MBEs. And there are a lot of certifications out there. I'm not gonna, that's, a 7-hour session around every single one. Those are the two top of mind, but I think, go ahead, Antonius.
I was going to say that's one of the things that we want to help to do with our outreach events through the Office of Diversity and Inclusion, is to help both minority business enterprises, women business enterprises, veteran business enterprises to kind of come together to increase their capacity and also to build up that network here in our community. But yeah, Willow, what are your insights on certifications as well?
I don't work as much with certifications. I think it's a great strategy. Bethany and I did some collaborative programming in 2019 focusing on certification with some other partner organizations. And I would just say, like, the larger strategy that we identified is, educating women and minority business owners on the benefits of certification, but also helping navigate if it's right for them or not, because it isn't right for everyone and it can be a cumbersome, time-consuming process. So we want to make sure that it is the right fit. And that the other side of this is, working first with our large employers on their supplier diversity programs to make sure that they are committed to a certain percentage of the services and products that they buy being from women and minority-owned businesses, because you don't want to pump up your entrepreneurs in your community like, yes, these contracts are available, when they're really not, and you just pull the rug out from under folks. So I think that two-pronged strategy is really important in our community, and I'm glad to see partners continue to work on that. The other just sort of piece of advice is that for people thinking like, I'm just not really sure that my business sells something that, a government entity or corporate entity would want to do a contract for, I would just say think again, because it's really, really incredible the diverse range of products and services that you can get contracts for. So don't count yourself out. I don't want to give a specific examples, but I've seen it just a remarkable array of different ways that businesses that never thought that they could connect in with those opportunities are able to do it. So happy to talk with folks and kind of think through some of share some of the examples that I've seen, but again, like, put folks in touch with Bethany and other partners that do the certification, as well as women who have gone through the certification process and are willing to mentor others to give them a heads up to make sure it goes as smoothly as possible. So and of course working with the city of South Bend too, and the new resources and support that you're providing.
And I think it's important that we share with the women-owned businesses of our community, also our minority-owned businesses of our community, and understanding that the certification process is an important one, and it is it's almost a bit of oversight that helps us to say transparently that the businesses that we're doing business with are in fact women-owned, that they are in fact minority-owned, but that there's also not a limitation on what our office can do. Our office is more than happy to work with a business that is certified, but we're also more than happy to work with a business that is non-certified. And Willow, I think this is a great time for you to kind of share with the community also what resources are available for both certified and non-certified with the conference that's coming up soon. Could you tell them a little bit about that?
Sure. So, yeah, thanks for the opportunity to plug the Engaging Women Virtual Summit. Every year, the Women's Entrepreneurship Initiative hosts a signature spring event. It's actually the largest fundraiser for the Women's Entrepreneurship Initiative and funds the Spark Women's Business Accelerator and our year-round programming to support women entrepreneurs. So on June 5th, people can participate online in a half-day lineup of just really great speakers with a focus on resilience, opportunity, and connection. We've got some built-in networking opportunities at the end of the day, and just want to continue sort of moving forward, building community for women, and making sure that they've got access to information that really helps them make smart decisions, but also continues to expand their social capital, the networks of people that can really help them be successful. So engaging women.
We'll try to get the flyer.
Yep.
I was gonna say, and we'll try to get the flyer to share with you guys so that everyone can share that with your respective social networks. Because it's really important that business owners have a community to connect with. Bethany, did you have an event that was also coming up soon?
Yes and no. It's not an event per se. I just wanted to share with our program, Hustle SBE. So applications close tomorrow, and if it is specific for women and minority-owned businesses that are already in business, and we have pivoted to, this is going to be called a Resiliency Sprint. So we're really focused on the current situation and how do we create resiliency within companies. And so we are looking at programming over the course of 6 weeks. As I mentioned, it'll all be virtual. There is a fee to participate once you're accepted, which is $50. And at the end of the program, there is opportunities for direct access to capital to implement one or more of the strategies you identified during the program. So we're looking at Tuesdays and Thursdays for an hour and a half each day. Starting June 16th, we are going to pick the time based on the accepted participants' availability. So the majority will rule that time frame. And yeah, so if you want to apply, you can just go to hustlesbe.org. So that's SBE as in South Bend Elkhart. And as long as you have a business within the 5 counties that I mentioned earlier, you are eligible to apply.
Yeah, and Willow, you were talking about the importance during our pre-meeting. You were talking about the importance of having these community-based businesses activated, and how important it was with your neighborhood Spark business incubator that you guys were operating, that these businesses be functioning in your community. Could you talk a little bit more about the mutual benefit of having these businesses in the community during COVID-19 and just in times moving forward?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, this is a sort of passion project of mine, being able to straddle the worlds of economic and community development and really supporting small businesses to be active parts of neighborhood revitalization and city revitalization. And I think that, there's been huge divestment in the west side of South Bend. We have, you go down different corridors, you can see there's a lot of businesses that have closed, there's vacant properties, there's a lot of vacant lots where homes were taken down. So there's this huge question of like, what does the rebuild look like and who gets to participate and what do neighborhoods look like? What kind of businesses do people want in their neighborhoods? And I won't lie, COVID-19 is a really, really difficult, it's a really difficult context because a lot of the neighborhood businesses that people love and that create such rich quality of life are often service-based businesses. They're barbershops and salons and restaurants. And so there's just no getting around that that's a difficult conversation. I still think that people deserve to live in safe, vibrant neighborhoods. And so we need to keep the conversation moving on the vision and then figuring out the business model that's going to work that helps people build wealth and keep it in their neighborhoods. So I'm a huge proponent of small scale development, and I think that empowering regular people and entrepreneurs to participate in that process it's an important strategy for wealth building. And so what we did in the pilot project is we just started to integrate those conversations, not only around how to develop a specific business model for success for an individual entrepreneur, but to think more broadly about asset building and ways that their business kind of fits into this larger narrative or efforts of revitalization, and in potentially how to what a strategy can look like to own mixed use property, a property that their business occupies but also generates rental income for them, or potentially diversifying different types of residential units. Again, it's the strategy to kind of incorporate these themes of small scale development are really about resilience, and they're about having multiple streams of revenue. So if your business is up, that's great. There could be another part of the stream of revenue that drives up a little bit, but if business is down, you may have this other stream through property ownership and renting it out, either commercial space or residential space. So I think again, it is a really hard time for our neighborhood-based businesses, and I still think I'm fighting for them. I'm fighting for our neighborhoods, and just for I also think deals are getting done. People are buying properties. Construction work is still continuing. So it's there are aspects that haven't ground to a halt, but I think we just need to be really smart about what it is that's going to go into those spaces, how it's going to generate revenue for the entrepreneur. People will need places to live, and there's plenty of business opportunity out there, and so I was glad to just keep moving forward on that conversation. And out of our pilot program, we have 3 women in particular who are really interested in incorporating that small scale development component into their business strategy, and so we'll be able to continue to provide resources for them to explore those options and hopefully take some next steps on being part of the rebuild.
Sure.
Yeah, and as you talk about that, Willow, certainly we place emphasis on this being challenging times for MWBEs, but in particular, we're talking about women in business here, and the wisdom that the 2 of you are sharing is of utmost importance. As we look at women in business, generally you'll find they're connected into the healthcare field, and or they have a service-oriented business. In challenging times like this, it's difficult to pivot and or to generate income to support yourself and the business. So it comes with some other kind of challenges for a woman-owned business. Can the 2 of you share with us some resources that can be helpful to women who are in business so that they can carry on? Bethany, can you speak to that?
Sure. I think we've mentioned a few already. I think as you're saying this, I run through conversations I've had with different women business owners just to hear what they have said. One thing that's not as specific, but I just want to reiterate, is in particular, this one business owner, her mentality is, I'm a survivor and I will do what it takes to survive. And that is like in your gut. It's that grit that will get you through. And and so it's been interesting going through the whole process with her of, I'm not sure if I can open my doors. When can I do that? When can I take employees off unemployment because I can't put them back on? And all these questions, and that whole survivor mentality really got her through. And I think the direct resources around this are organizations like Willow's, like the South Bend Elkhart Regional Partnership, SCORE, ISBDC, the city. The wonderful thing about this region is for the size of our region, we have a fairly robust entrepreneurship ecosystem. And so depending on what type of business you're running and what you're looking for, there are resources available. And I think things like this webinar are those connection points, right? And so I think one piece that we haven't touched on much, because unfortunately there aren't as many women in the tech-based industries, but we hope to see more. And I think a few things I would like to mention about that are, we do have an organization called Startup South Bend Elkhart that they focus on that, and they provide really solid mentorship and access to capital for those tech-based, innovation, disruptive sort of businesses that are more in the traded industries. I also want to encourage something we did with Hustle, is we gave each participant from our local inclusive bookseller, Brain Layer Books, we purchased Carol Dweck's Growth Mindset, which, as we're talking about all of this,
We have the opportunity.
it really is the mindset that's going to drive surviving through this crisis, because we each day make a decision of, are we going to sit and wonder, what am I going to do? Or are we going to look at how can we seize the opportunities, the challenges we have as opportunities? And so I really think it's been a good time to have that time to reflect and to look at what are opportunities that I'm not seizing right now. And I'll reiterate, I think women are, from what I can see, are doing a great job of seizing those opportunities. And yes, we all have our bad days. We all have our seasons of suffering, but knowing and learning from those to make us more sound on the other side of this, and visualizing, and some use the term manifesting, what we want on the other side of this really impacts how we get through it, is what I believe and what I've observed.
Okay. And Willow, yourself?
Well, there's so much good things that Bethany just said. When I was thinking about the mindset piece, I mean, I'm seeing incredible things out of our women entrepreneurs. They're pivoting their businesses in really interesting ways. There have been, it's hard because, like, there's a reality that's a really difficult one. It's a really important one to talk about. And then you don't want to talk about it in a way that undercuts the strength that we're seeing out of women too. But there is a certain point of the day where women are like, can I please put down a little of this burden? Like, yes, I'm strong, I'm carrying on, I'm doing all of the things. And, and the deck's stacked against you sometimes. And I think one of the things that's just important to talk and be open about is that the industries that many of the women-owned businesses fall into are the industries that have been hardest hit by COVID-19, which are the service businesses. And as economic activity dries up and more people are staying at home, we're not paying people to do things for us. We're not, we're not going to the salons. We're not going out to restaurants. We're not, we're not purchasing as many things in retail locations and in our brick and mortar stores. And so I've always advocated, you meet entrepreneurs where they're at, and some people have a particular passion and vision for their business. But I always tried to open up through the Spark program, help women to get into environments where they have a broader view of the kind of economic activity that's happening in the region and where there's growth, because they're often not positioned in growth industries. There are often ways that they can take their existing business and pivot it just a little bit more to more closely align to that growth. So, for example, not everyone just pivots over to a tech startup, and that's okay. We don't expect that. Like, that's not your passion, that's not your strength. But if you understand the problems that businesses in the tech environment, or in construction, or in healthcare, IT, transportation, logistics, like the areas of strength, manufacturing, the areas of strength in our community, and you understand sort of the pain points of those businesses, you often can position yourself like kind of second tier, third tier, to do business with them and have contracts with them. And that's a place where I really want to see women, that we're supporting them, obviously, to pursue businesses that they're passionate about, but also position them for growth and to make them feel comfortable, welcomed, and be seen as leaders in environments that they've been underrepresented in. And so that's kind of from a higher level perspective. Some of the things that drive my work is to make sure that, and I think this this crisis is also an opportunity for people to see, like, okay, a lot of the experiences that we have in terms of work and purchasing and community are virtual, And
Sure.
we're not going to completely dial back to how life was before. Some of
That's
these
right.
changes are permanent. And so to the degree that we can embrace and kind of use that resiliency piece to just be hungry for like, what other problem can I solve that matches where I'm also passionate. And that's a place where I think women can really win. And so, and my program is here to help kind of, explore some of those new opportunities. And I always appreciate Bethany's partnership, because the South Bend Elkhart Regional Partnership really leads on providing a lot of information and forums for people to understand those broader economic opportunities. And so I always love, women and especially women of color to walk into those spaces and, just own it. They're there, they belong. And that information can be a game changer for their business and how they position themselves for the future.
Yeah.
Can I just add on a complimentary piece to what Willow was saying? So, and we hit on this a little bit, but one of the initiatives that we're working on is to support those industries that Willow highlighted. We have identified some industry clusters in this region that are poised for growth that'll increase the number of high wage, high demand jobs. And so a piece we're looking at is, how do we support those employers with creating a diverse supply chain as well as a diverse talent pool within their companies. And so that's, for the Diversity and Inclusion Initiative, that's one of our big focus areas, is we're building out a digital portal to allow for that information and resources specifically around inclusive environments. We are also, through the LIFT network, building out another asset portal that will eliminate some of the barriers that exist currently around getting valuable information and understanding who exists in the different ecosystems, whether it's project-based learning, whether it's work-based learning, whether it's entrepreneurship. This comes out of the grant that we received from the Lilly Foundation, and it's really transformational in that we're working with the University of Notre Dame to connect educational resources to manufacturing, and the crux of it is really to create resilience from every level to weather a storm like a recession, like we're having and will continue. And so looking at diversifying their supply chains. So when one supplier may go down, they have others in the back pocket that they can lean on to avoid some of the disruptions. So I think I said a lot there, but if anyone has questions about it, I can deep dive further after this call for sure.
Yeah. Wow. A lot of information has been shared. We are at the latter end of our virtual platform webinar. And Antonius, I know if you have another question you'd like to raise, we can quickly get an answer before we bring this to a close. Certainly, we welcome that question.
So, firstly, I just wanted to thank both Bethany and Willow once again for your work in our community. Women-owned businesses are integral to our community, and not just for the sake of employment, right, but for our community's stability. And the programs that you guys are pulling together have a restorative nature for past injustices. This thing is much larger than just a profit and loss discussion. And so having two guys like you, or two folks like you, out there in the community making sure that our women-owned businesses have the support that they need is so important. So I really applaud you. My two questions are this. Bethany, could you please once more share with our viewers how folks get a hold of the application for SBE Hustle? And then after that, Willow, would you make sure that you share once more about the women's conference that's coming up, and let folks know whether or not that is a conference that is only for women, or if it's something that men could also attend and learn how they could also support women-owned businesses.
So for the Hustle SBE
first?
program, if you go to online Hustle, HUSTLE, SBE.org, there's a landing page that gives you more information, more of the details, and then the application. I would just stress to take put some thought into the application. We will accept up to 12 businesses into the program. And so it is, relatively speaking, competitive. So give yourself the best opportunity for that. Oh, yep, that's the website.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
And I would direct people to engagingwomenconference.com for more information about it. And men are always welcome. And I think that, yeah, it's really important to have men as advocates for women's success. And we've certainly designed the programming based on the entrepreneurs and professionals that we've surveyed in terms of what they're looking for. But we always have men, especially those in our entrepreneurial ecosystem, who attend and get a lot of value, both out of the content that's shared and the connections that are made as well. So yes, we encourage everyone who's interested to attend. I will say, like, this particular event, in part, we broadened the focus just a little bit in terms of the target community that we're reaching, because we're able to include many first-generation St. Mary's graduates this year who are, seniors who are graduating, and really help embrace some younger career professionals like into this broader network. And I think that I'm really proud of the way that we're able to include students that we're not typically able to do in an in-person conference when school is in session, but going virtual has allowed greater flexibility. And I think that intergenerational interaction is hugely important, and we have a lot of more seasoned women entrepreneurs and career professionals who are really excited at the prospect of connecting with women who are, early in their career journey and helping to open doors and opportunities to them. So I would just include a sort of, encourage like any woman at the stage of their career journey to join and really check out the conference and connect with us.
Bethany and Willow, Antonius and I certainly have enjoyed the conversation that we've had today to address women in business, keeping calm and carrying on as we have themed this webinar. Would love to give each of you an opportunity to kind of give some closing remarks. Bethany, starting with you, and then Willow.
Sure. I would just encourage, if you are a women business owner, to really reach out and know that no question is too small or too big, and that there is a network, a huge network that is very interested in supporting and helping, in particular, women business owners and minority business owners across this region. And so I think always be willing to put in the work that you want others to echo in your business as well. And I think taking advantage of any opportunities that you see coming out of St. Mary's, I would highly encourage the virtual summit. I think leaning on the resources that we have locally is so important. And I also think recognizing what your strengths are as we go through this time and understanding how you leverage those during this time. And I'm always a big fan of focus on your strengths and get other people to help you with your weaknesses, so you can focus on what you're really good at. So I thank the City of South Bend for this time, and I am happy to, if you share my contact info, to speak with anyone that is interested in follow-up conversation.
Yeah, thank you. Willow?
Yeah, I'm happy to talk to folks as well, and I really appreciate your role, Michael. Congratulations on your new role with the city. Thank you for your leadership. Antonius, it's always been a pleasure working with you in the past, and I'm grateful that you're in the role that you're in now. You're just an incredible advocate for our business community. And you've got a wonderful asset in Larry too, kind of coming over from the workforce development side. So you're really assembling a dynamite team, and I grateful to be in collaboration with you. And I guess my final thought is that these are not normal times, and it's okay not to feel normal. And you might be someone who's drawn to crisis and does really well in it, and you might be someone who's really struggling, and any place in between is it's totally okay. So anyone who reaches out to me, don't feel like you've got to be in a perfect place to ask questions or seek resources. We meet women where they are, and then just go step by step. So
Yeah. Thank you all for joining us today. I hope that you were empowered and impacted by the information shared in today's webinar session. And we look forward as well to you continuing to connect to us as we do the work here with diversity and inclusion within our office. Let me take the time to thank my staff, co-host Antonius Northern, our inclusive project manager, as well as Larry King, our contract compliance administrator, for their hard work and support of today's webinar. We invite you to join us on Tuesday, May the 26th at 11 a.m. for our next webinar. Our guest will be Derek Wesley, owner and operator of State Farm Insurance Agency, and he will be talking about how do minority-owned businesses address unique, steep hurdles amid coronavirus cash crunch. We look forward to next week's show. We hope each and every one of you that have participated today will join us and connect with us on Tuesday.